My intention is not to show techniques. Any techniques I show are demonstrations of the concept that I'm trying to get across. You either can copy the demonstration or you can apply it to what you do. My intention, my objective of this session is to improve your control, to change how you perceive control, and to celebrate kind of the diversity of jiu-jitsu, in that we are all massively different body types, and so if you try and copy what I do, I am 6'2", 8 to 9 kilos. I have certain leg length. If you are of any different body type to me, what I do isn't going to work for you, and so trying to make what I do work for you doesn't make sense. But my intention is to explain how control works, and then for you to adapt it to suit your body type. For you to then critically look at what you do and improve it. So I'll look at a couple of positions, a couple of submissions. Again, apply it to what you do. You don't have to drill what we're drilling. Apply it to your preferred game. Does that make sense so far? When it comes to drilling, I do not care how many you do. It's not about reps or like, you could do one. Do one really well though. And you don't have to be the person drilling to be the person drilling. So like in jiu-jitsu, we're very good. Like if it's our turn to drill, we're the one doing the technique. But I learn more from coaching someone doing the technique to me. Because like the greatest like paradox in jiu-jitsu is we never feel our own side control. We're always going to be delivering onto someone, but we never actually get to feel the pressure we give to other people. The only time you'd ever get close is if you can be on the bottom and coach someone through it. Everything I kind of know about hurting people is because I ask people to do it to me. As in, they get hold of my foot and I'm like, oh, what if you do this? What if you do that? So if it's your turn to drill, you don't have to be the person doing the drill. You can talk someone else through it and then feel what it's like and go, actually, what if you put your weight here? Oh, that hurts more. Cool. Okay? So just changing how you drill so you can get more out of it instead of just saying, right, I'll do 5 goes, you do 5 goes. That makes no sense to me. Conversation is important. When I'm not coaching, when I'm not talking, your training partner is your coach. And so if you don't have that dialogue with them, we're back to pandemic days and we might as well all have training dummies. It's an intelligent sport, so we may as well use it. So the first position now I'm going to look at is side control. I have a very dynamic side control. I don't do anything in particular. I just have a list of criteria I must fulfill. If I can fulfill that criteria, I'm doing well. If it falls apart, I can examine those criteria and go, right, which part is falling apart, and fix it. And so, who can I borrow? I think the guy I want to be Uki is drunk. He texts me saying, oh, I'm too drunk for your shit. Timothy, I'll borrow you, sir. So I remember your name. Okay, so just thank you. Also, you can have a preferred side in jiu-jitsu. You don't have to do like equal amounts both sides. Like who here is like right-handed? Exactly. How much do you like your left? You don't. Stupid. You want to be really good with your right hand. You don't bother your left hand. That does other things. So to think that you have to do jiu-jitsu on both sides, like we don't write that way, so don't do it that way. You can adapt your jiu-jitsu around someone instead of having a crap mirror image. So when it comes to control then, like you have a preferred side, good. Everyone's heard the idea of like control the head and hips, I assume, but why? Again, I heard it from day one when I started training. It wasn't until maybe 8 years in that I actually heard why we do it. How strange. So if I was to give you like a snake, okay? If you hold the tail end of the snake, front end's going to be like waving around, it's going to bite you. Bad times, ruin my day. If I hold the head of the snake, tail's going to be moving around, it's going to wrap around my neck, kill me, bad day. Okay? But if I hold both ends of the snake, yeah, you ain't going to get me today, right? Exactly the same with the human being. We are our spines, okay? On the one end, we have the hips. On the one end, we have the head. If we control one end, legs moving around, they shrimp, they do horrible things to us. Control the other end, head comes up, they post on us, and life gets difficult. But if I control both ends, they're done, okay? It doesn't mean I have to. Like, I can move far away from the tail. The it becomes no longer an issue to me. But again, it's one of those criteria. Again, like if I'm having problems that their legs are moving too much, I can look at that criteria. Am I controlling his hips? Or am I far enough away that it doesn't bother me? So when we play head and arm, we'll start there. That's why you sometimes hear put your knee next to his hips. You don't have to. You can use your hip. Now, have scarf hold sitting here, low scarf. It doesn't matter, okay? But as long as I fulfill that criteria, I can have my foot sitting here whilst I do head and arm. It doesn't matter, okay? As long as I'm fulfilling that criteria. Now I'm starting to see this like approach where I'm saying, I'm going to adapt your jiu-jitsu for you so you know why you're doing what you're doing. So part one, hips and the head. That's why we control head and arm. That's why we control the legs. Part two, everything in jiu-jitsu, every control position can be defined as who is in the other person's armpits, okay? And this is my problem with head and arm, is you think side control, mount, rear mount, it's all about who is in the space between the other person's knees and armpits. And usually the defense to all jiu-jitsu is get them out of that space. The first defense you ever learn is a shrimp, and when you shrimp, you're reconnecting your elbow to your knee. Why? Because it gets them out of that space. That's why we frame, is because it gets them out of the armpit space. So the opposite of that would be, the deeper into the armpits I go, the harder your life becomes. Basic wrestling, underhooks and overhooks. Now you can have an underhook in wrestling, whether if it's a worthless underhook and they have a decent overhook into your armpit, they have more control. So the deeper into those armpits I get, life gets easier. Now this is the problem I have with head and arm, is I am quite long-bodied, okay? You might not be. Again, adapting your jiu-jitsu and understanding why you do what you do. Because of me having quite a long body, the distance between his shoulder and his elbow is normally going to be shorter than the distance between my hip and my shoulder. So if I go for a head and arm control here, I'm always going to have this stopper here, which is my shoulder, that is not going to allow me to get my hip into his armpit. And so I might be able to get like pretty close, but the second I try and move, people will frame on my hips. I'm now no longer in their armpits, I'm now losing control. Does that make sense? So just by, if I copy the jiu-jitsu that I was taught, it might have been by like a 4 foot and a fag end dude who's like, you know, short armed and everything. Like, yeah, it's going to work for you because you're short. I am not. Like, so it doesn't make sense for us to copy this. And so I adapted it. Let's put my arm on the other side because now I can get my hip super close into your armpit. Now I have better control. There's no way you're going to frame on top or frame into my hips. The last thing I want is me to be here. I think, cool, I've got great control. I try and move, and he frames in my hips. His elbow comes in. Elbow. Yeah. Now I'm like, crap. He's now halfway to shrimping. That's worthless. Okay? Does that make sense so far? Have I lost anyone yet? So, part one, head and the hips. Part two, armpit control. Okay? Deeper into the armpits, harder life becomes for him. Who has a problem when it comes to like mount? Like, whoever has done a mount class like this? And like it starts here, and the first thing you do is got to open up their armpits. And like no-gi mount is super difficult to use because like it's really hard to like get in. There's no cross collars and anything like that. Everyone's framing here, and it's like, oh, there's no submissions. I'll just abandon this position. Unless it's MMA or gi jiu-jitsu, no-gi mount really isn't that helpful. It's just because we're taught it wrong. The difference between side control, mount, and north-south is just what I have in his armpits. So side control, I have a hip on my arm, mount, 2 legs, north-south, 2 arms. So it's just a different combination of my limbs in his armpits. That's all that ever changed. So that's why I don't separate those positions. It's very dynamic between them. I just fulfill the criteria. I just want something in your armpit. I couldn't care what it is, as long as that armpit is open. Make sense? So instead of teaching mount, old school way of being here, where I now have to open his armpits, it's super difficult because they're like really tight and he's framing. I'm here. Would you say this is difficult for you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. And I get a lot of submissions from here. If it goes wrong, like he starts to move around, and if I starts to move his hips, fine. I just don't want to give up the armpits. I can move quite dynamically. Make sense? So part one, because you guys have already listened for 10 minutes, thank you, is I want you to go to your side control and feel it. Like, change it. Like, does this matter? Do you have a problem holding side control? Do they frame on you? Move stuff around, get that kind of feedback off your partner. Like think, right, are you actually controlling the hips? This is like one of my favorite ways of messing with people in side control, is that our proprioception, our understanding of where we are in time and space is very poor, okay? And so the amount of times people will be holding side control like this. Like, to your eyes, it looks like you're pretty straight. From a bird's eye perspective, this is terrible. And half the time, if I'm on the bottom of side control, I'll just walk my legs in until I'm pretty much like lying like this with someone, and they haven't even noticed. Because to them, holding head and arm, the world is still like 90 degrees. So be aware, like, where are you? Like, are you actually controlling the hips? Are you actually controlling the head? Do you need to control the head? Maybe, maybe not. Are you in the armpits? Do you have a problem that you are of a long persuasion and people frame on you all the time? Can you move to the other side? Can you get deeper into their armpits? Does your mount transition now work better? Can you move across to here? Like a good drill for it is, go on top. Go side control. Put your head over here. Cool. Okay, so right now, like move deeper into my armpit, open up my arm, like this side. Okay, so now I feel like pretty messed up. I want him to transition to mount without losing this pressure on my arm. Okay, yeah. Oh, it's closed. Okay, try again. I don't push, I just retract it. So now keep it wide open. Like, be conscious of this. I keep that pressure there. Oh yeah. Now life sucks. Okay? Yes. Okay, so I move this knee deep into my armpit. Yeah, if I was stuck into this mount, I'd have a really bad day. Okay? Exactly. And now he's going to break my arms and my legs, and the world's terrible. That's different. That is now a better mount. Does that make sense? So have that like little transition now, like get to your side control, like see how easy it is for actually people to frame on what you're doing and adapt it, fix it, have that conversation, and then do that transition to mount, where how many times does their arm just retract in? Like, you spend all that time passing the guard, getting the side control, open their arms up, and then you move to mount and they're doing this. And it's like, oh, why? Why did I give up their armpits? Why is life now difficult? Why did you just jiu-jitsu suck? Okay? Make sense? So, I don't know, a couple of minutes. It's not complicated. I'm not doing techniques. So yeah, enjoy. Come back in a few. Off you go.
Well, this one, yes, but this one I brought it into your hook.
So same movement. This time I want to increase pressure. So I met Daniel Bettina, one of the other Globetrotter coaches, one of my earlier camps, probably about 2015, and he's kind of known for pressure. And he used me as an uke, and it felt like he was going to blow my hips out, and it felt incredible, if you're into that sort of thing. And so I became obsessed with it. Like years and years and years I spent like trying to figure out why does pressure feel so good. If I was to give you a euro, for example, or whatever your currency is, and like a thumbtack, like for pushing stuff into the wall, I told you to push both into the mat with equal pressure. Which one pierces the mat? The thumbtack. Even though you're delivering equal pressure, only one pierces the floor. Simple physics. So why am I lying my chest flat on the other person if my weight is spread out? Doesn't make sense. So instead, I'm going to use the corners. I'm going to use the sharp points of my body. That's why knee on belly sucks. So when I'm moving around someone, I don't want to stay flat on top of them, using my chest and my stomach to try and pin them down, even though it kind of looks like it should make sense. I'm going to use the sharp points of my body. I'm going to use my hips, I'm going to use my shoulders, knees, elbows. And so that's how you make small people feel big. I make big people murderers. So? Yeah. So if I'm lying like here on top of him, I'm about 89 kilos. It's not really upsetting for him. But if I can find the corner of my...
Don't.
Don't.
I'm scared.
If I can find the corner of my hip bone and start to apply that into the corner of his ribs. Now, who here's rolled with me in the past couple of days and had a really rough time? Like, Yeah, various people nod. Yeah, so I'm just going to put my weight in his body. I'm also slightly off my knees, so the weight has been driving into him. You okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Just be careful, like who you do this to. You may break their ribs. It happens a lot in my gym, mostly due to me. So either my hip's doing the damage, and wherever he goes, I am following with that bone in his ribs. Or if I can't use that, again, just replace. You seem sad.
No, doing it harder, Daddy.
That's not a video, you weirdo. Again, I will replace what I have in his armpits depending on what I need to accomplish, as long as there's something in his armpits. So another option is to go underhook over his shoulder and then use the corner of your shoulder, about here, where it's nice and bony, and drive that into the corner of his rib cage. So now I'm fulfilling criteria. I have something next to his hip. I have something next to his head. I have armpit control. You okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So add that into your movement now. We'll build up a bit more. So as you move around, focus on like where your weight is distributed. Are you just like going flat on top of them? Or can you find the corners of your body? So hips, really good. Shoulders, really nice. Rib cage, if you're like a true sadist and like stabbing people with your own ribs, it's a really nice one. I've really got into it recently. Honest. So yeah, add that in. So move around the armpits, do transitions, do people retract, do they frame? But this time, use those corners. I want like, if I can hear screaming, this is gonna be a really cool session. Like, so yeah, be audible. Off you go.
It's like a Dan in a sense.
Yeah. Someone jumped the gun and asked the question, what if you go too far over and you get rolled? Good question. This is the last part, just to grow this part of the job before we change on to something else entirely. So head and hips, controlling both ends of the snake. Going into the armpits, actually controlling the armpits, depending on your body type. Delivering good pressure. If you are smaller, you probably just, I heard some screaming, like from smaller people. That's really good. Like, that's a good sign. That's a good session for me. Last part then is like the rotation problem. So for me to roll over and go one way, I have 3 rotation points on my spine. My head, my shoulders, and my hips. All 3 have to be in unison for me to roll over. Makes sense? If one of those is arguing, I can't go any further without breaking something. If my arms don't want to go, my legs don't want to go, I can't go in the direction I want. So again, exploring why we do head and arm is that if I push someone's jaw away, it's now very difficult for them to turn in towards me and shrimp. They can't, they want to get their legs in this way, except this is arguing, it's going that way. So you can use this to your advantage because you can create routes for people to go down. You've only left them one option and that you know where they're going. Or you can be a disgusting, terrible person and give them 2 routes and they can't go either direction. Okay? So you have 3 options. Head, shoulders, and hips. You can either put them like in one direction and say, right, that's the only way you're going. I know you're going that way. And when you do go that way, I've already got a plan to make your life miserable. Or I put you in 2 directions and now your body is arguing, your spine is arguing, because it can't go both ways at the same time. If anyone's ever seen like the Josh Barnett catch wrestling, was it Josh or was it? Might have been Paulson. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so when I'm, again, controlling someone, if I want them to go a certain direction, I'm focused on these details. So I'm thinking, right, if I put his legs this way, I know the only way he can go now is that way. If he tries to turn back towards me, he can't. His hips won't allow it. So the only way he's going to go is that way. And I have a plan if he goes that way. I might armbar him, for example. But if I bring his head this way, now if he wants to move away to you guys, roll to the guys, he can't. He'll snap his neck. If he wants to roll towards me, he can't. He will have to dislocate his hips. Okay, so I'm always like choosing some of these options to then mess with people. So when I hold my head and arm, that's why you're doing it. It's because I'm using my shoulder to move his face this way, so now it's his only option, but I'm also then lifting this elbow, because now we can't roll that way, because he'd have to rip his own arm off. Does that make sense? So again, I'm understanding the process, not just rote copying technique. So, there, I now know you can't shrimp towards me, try and shrimp. Like, try and shrimp your legs, like reclaim guard. Yeah, his life is difficult, he'd have to break his neck. We now try and roll the way to turtle. You can't, because his shoulders have to come off. So I use these options when I'm holding someone down. So that like horrible little version that I used earlier, so me holding here, even though I don't have head and arm, I'm tucking this arm here, like low behind his tricep. So now if he wants to roll towards me, he can't. He'd have to dislocate his shoulder. So now he thinks, cool, I'm going to have to roll away. Which he tries. He can't because I have his arm. Make sense? So I choose the alleyways that people can do. So if you want to feel this like truly in action, it's a good example. Fake a step over, wipe the arm and catch it. So now the only option you can go is to roll towards me. But if I now fake mount and he lifts his head up to, leg up to block, and I step through.
Could you press a bit? My back's about to pop.
Exactly. He said, I'm going to ruin his spine. So his legs want to go this way to you guys. His arm is arguing. His body wants to roll towards me. His legs are arguing. So now I've got a pretty decent pin on him. He can't go anywhere. So this is why this is such an effective pin. It's because I've got two different directions in action. But it doesn't matter what I use. Could be leg. That looks disgusting. But it'd work. Okay? So that's why these techniques work. This is why these techniques exist. If someone's like jiu-jitsu wasn't handed down by some deity on a stone tablet like 2,000 years ago and given to Mr. Gracie. It's physics and biology in action, and we apply ourselves to the concepts and we get the techniques out the other side. So we have this idea that if I put the spine in two ways, you can't move. And so then people like look at different ways we can accomplish that. And that was one way that Mr. Paulson did. And people stopped moving. And I was like, oh, it must work then. So instead of just copying the technique, we look at why. So if you want to try that, be my guest. I'll quickly demonstrate again. Sorry, Sue. I'll pick someone else.
No, he enjoys it.
So I fake a step over. He tries to push my leg back. I wipe, catch it behind my arm, and use his head just to hold on to. Take a step over, he lifts his leg, I go through, ratchet his legs back, and now he's pretty stuck. Do you all feel that? Be my guest. Again, it's only demonstrations of a concept in action. Sorry. If you want to add to the drill that you're already doing, head and hip control, armpit control, pressure, and then examine where you're actually holding that will allow people to do what they want to do when it comes to shrimping, moving away. Here, head and arm, again, works really well because I've got his arm elevated. He can't now roll towards me. The problem becomes if my head and arm isn't actually a good head and arm, I'm just supporting next to his head, and now he can turn towards me and get his arm down, and now he shrimps. And we're like, oh, jiu-jitsu's hard. Why is my head and arm working? It's because you don't actually know why we're holding it. We just do it. Make sense? So approach your jiu-jitsu, fix your jiu-jitsu, play. But now add this detail in. Off you go.
And again, get the head control. Just like you can keep the shoulder in that, and once it's over and stuff, you don't even need that fake sort of like extra thing. If you can just go for the mount now. And if I defend, and again, just through with your leg. Yeah, there you go. Hook back. And then
again, I said the objective out at the beginning of I want to improve what you have. I don't want to give you new techniques. Because you won't use them because everyone's seen the same technique, and that's one of whoever's maybe learned something in their class, like a setup to a triangle, and then hasn't been able to use it for 6 months because everyone knows that same setup to that same triangle. I didn't want that problem. I didn't want it to be a case of we were at that same class. Right? I want to take what you already do and adapt it for what your body type and your game. So just understanding why you are doing what you're doing. So head and hip control, understanding are you doing it, and if you're again, I'd rather give you the concept so you can look at why things break. Like if someone gets out of something, I don't want it to be a case of, oh, he was just better, or she was just better. I want it to be a case of, no, there has to be a reason why. Were you controlling the hips? Yes or no? No. Were you facing them towards you? Yes. Well, there you have it. That's why they did a shrimp on you. It's because you weren't controlling their hips and you let them turn towards you. So fix it. Like if you find that people are framing back in your hips again and you can't, and you're getting rolled over or anything, right? Will you in their armpits? Yes or no? No. Well, I can tell you where you went wrong then. Does that make sense? So I don't want to be a case of like, just do as I do. Again, I am very different to the rest of you. So I'd rather you take this and critique your own jiu-jitsu. This isn't fighting, it's sparring, it's a training aid. Fix it. Fix what you're doing. Like if I am rolling with someone and something starts to fall apart, I adapt. I go, right, why is this breaking? I'll put something else there. Okay? Make sense? So I refer to that as like major control. I'm now looking at minor control. I remember going to a tournament 3 or 4 years ago, and I watched some blue belts like really trying to kill each other. It wasn't my blue belts, but they were trying to kill each other. And they were throwing arm bars left and right. And these arm bars are terrible. Like they throw the arm bar, they'd fall apart, they'd then up on their back, and then they're being guard, and they get guard past anything. So if I've gone like from a major control, mount, side control or something, and I go from a major to a minor control, where I'm no longer controlling the torso, I'm now controlling the limb, I need to make sure that limb control is damn near perfect. Because if I mess that up, I have nothing left. Okay? I no longer have full control over that person. I have given it up to go for a limb. And so what I want you to do is like separate out your submissions. You should be able to roll every submission perfectly safe if you can follow this idea. Of take every submission you know, you have the finishing detail, which is very definitive. Like every choke, every armbar, every leg lock, there's a definitive thing you're destroying. Okay? Like with a heel hook, you're ripping something in the knee. With an armbar, you're hyperextending the elbow. That's very definitive. Understand your target, paint your target, and that's now like your goal. The step before that, the control that allows you to get that definitive detail, is the minor control. That is very personal. Okay? Like how I hold an armbar should be very different to how you hold an armbar because we have different body types. Like there's an infinite number of ways people hold leg locks. Ashy and etc. Like if you're watching Danaher, Cummings, Ryan, there's always going to be little adaptations, and for them it works. So they teach what works for them. But again, I haven't got giant, tree trunk legs, so their detail for holding onto it's going to be very different. It wasn't until I started to like try and use like a triangle grip for like a senkaku, I was like, this isn't gripping onto his leg enough. Like this is making my heel hooks harder. I need to adapt. And so I changed my leg combination, and then I was getting heel hooks more often. And so copying rote what someone does might not be for you, and that's when you go back to that, I can't get this technique to work. Well, it's because it wasn't made for your body type. But if you understand the concept of what you're actually trying to accomplish, you should be able to adapt it to fit what you do. And so if I'm going for a joint lock, for example, and we'll approach those, again, go through whatever joint lock you wish. The general concept behind a joint lock is I want to control the joint above and below the one I want. That's like crucial. So if I want to like destroy someone's arm in an armbar, I want to control the wrist and I want to control the shoulder. If I do not have both of those joints, it gives them opportunity to escape. Make sense? So say we're going for an armbar. Ronda Rousey special. Here. This is why like Preet's armbar defense works really well, is he puts his thumb in his hand, so now the control of the wrist is limited, it's like holding on to a golf ball, and usually when people are here, they're holding on to the bicep, or their legs are completely relaxed and they've just got them lying over the face and body. He's not actually controlling my shoulder. I limit my own mobility by holding on to my own arm and letting him lock in here. So now, yeah, armbar's gonna work because I actually trapped my own shoulder like an idiot, okay? But if I can turn away, I can now move my shoulder. I can adapt to where he's trying to armbar me. So as he goes back and tries to armbar, I can now twist it because you never had my shoulder. I can now, even though I'm in a fully locked out armbar, nothing's actually happening to me because he didn't actually control above and below the one he wanted. It looked like it. He was copying technique as it was shown in a book or on YouTube or whatever, but he wasn't applying the concept. And now I can escape. And so that kind of forms the basis for most escapes, like late escapes, is I'm trying to free one of those joints, and the one normally closer to the body is quite easy to escape. And so take that idea and apply that to the submissions that you do. Are you fastening onto that above joint? Yes or no? So you can now play with submissions. You can look at, right, are they, latching onto the joint? Can I free that joint? That's what I mean. You can play heel hooks quite safely. Is that you can now separate the finishing detail from the minor control mechanic, go to the minor control mechanic, hold it perfectly. If they can't move, yeah, the finish is going to be pretty definitive. It's going to work. For example, you might scream. Sorry. Say if I was going for a heel hook. Again, who you're fighting as well changes what you do. His legs are a lot shorter than mine, so the grips I want are now going to have to be amended because I might not be able to hold on to above his knee as effective as I wanted. So, or it might be easier for me. I might have too much leg left, so now I have to adapt. So using the technique that I thought I needed may not be appropriate anymore. But the tighter I can now understand this concept, so if I really latch onto that above joint and make it so he can't go anywhere, my submissions should get better. So if I understand that I want to rotate the bottom of his leg free from the top of his leg for this heel hook, I want to make sure that is completely isolated. He can't move that at all. So doing this doesn't make sense, especially with my leg length. I'm not going to be able to latch on. But if I adapt and really latch onto his leg,
God.
yeah, exactly. That's a pretty tight grip, suitable for my body type. Can you move your femur now?
Fuck off.
Okay, so his leg is now completely isolated up top, and now this second part is going to be very easy. Yeah, but I can now train heel hooks really safe. I know at this point now, I've isolated above and below the joint I want. It isn't going anywhere, and now just the break's going to be super easy. But if this is super relaxed, I'm just paying it lip service and just holding on. I'm yo, heel hook time. It's nothing's happening. This should be very, the leg doesn't like this. It doesn't move that way. And so if it takes me more than a few mil to tap him, something must be horribly wrong in both these parts. Make sense? So look at how you're actually doing your submissions. Kimura? Kimura?
Sure.
Yeah, Kimura me? So how he Kimura's me now, again, look at the joint he's trying to isolate. He wants to isolate my elbow because he wants to destroy my shoulder. And he needs to isolate my other shoulder. Okay? This way so you guys can see. So, there's some camera there. So because the ground is limiting how much I can move my body and my other shoulder, I now need to free the other joint. So if I can just lock up your Kimura, if I can just put my elbow free, now I can finish the Kimura. He hasn't got my elbow. No Kimura. So now it changes how he has to hold his Kimura. Because if I can just slip my elbow down that easily, now Kimura me. No. But now he has to adapt. Now if he really pins my elbow into his body, now I'm messed up. Okay? So now it made his jiu-jitsu better because now he's actually applying the concept as it should be. Make sense? So you can use more example if you want, free the elbow, see if that changes anything. The other good one is an ankle lock. I did a seminar, I taught a seminar alongside Imanari back in September, and he's 4.5 feet tall. He is a tiny man. So his way of holding on to a leg was vastly different than I would hold on to a leg. So when he was doing an ankle lock, I don't use this because my legs are pretty long. But because his legs rarely reach up there, he latches onto the knee, like this. But again, he's applying the concept as it should be. So it's an ankle lock, so that's the middle. So the joints he needs to control are the foot and the knee. He can't reach around the knee in a regular kind of ashy way, so he adapts and just holds onto it this way with his short legs. Why do we put the boot on when we do ankle lock escapes? Because the foot's free. But if I remember Sven teaching an ankle lock class, it completely changed how I looked at it. If I completely wrap around the foot so they can't put the boot on, move your foot, yeah, your foot's now gone.
Yeah.
Okay? And now I'm going to fully isolate your knee. And now the ankle lock should be super easy. But if he frees one of those joints, like free your knee, I now can't do it. So now I have to be better at holding onto the knee. Make sense? So look at the submissions that you have. See if it breaks, if the control isn't as good. Like, don't break each other. Trust your training partners on this one. Like, free the joints, see what happens. Like wrist locks. Like, again, if anyone's rolled with me this past couple of days, I've probably wrist locked you at some point. Well, why does a wrist lock work? I'm controlling the hand above the joint, controlling the one below the joint. Wrist lock. But if he frees his elbow, no wrist lock. Super simple. So go submissions that you play with, ankle locks, heel hooks, arm bars, arm platters, whatever, and now really latch on to those two joints, whatever your body type suits, okay? If you've got long legs, short legs, like try different combinations, get that feedback off your partner, say, oh yeah, I can't move at all now, and see if your submissions improve. See if the amount of play it takes to get those submissions improved. Again, one of the main parts that kind of tripped me onto this is like when Preet kind of broke his own armbar defense. Lying back.
No,
Is instead of just like sitting here, he rags the shoulder through and he pinches onto it. Like, can you move your shoulder now?
Nope.
Can you move anything now? No. But my legs are long, so it suits me. But one of my brown belt students holds her armbar completely different. She latches on this way, because her legs are really short, but she just sits her weight over the shoulder. Well, if you want to ask her to go do an armbar class, and she told you to do this, you'd be like, I can't hold that armbar that well. Yeah, because your leg's probably really long. But because she's got short, strong legs, it suits her. So she latches on like this. Can you move your shoulder?
Nope.
Yeah, I get the same output. Make sense? So adapt your jiu-jitsu around that idea. How do you hold on to the arm? Does it suit you to have the legs over? It might not. Like, you might have to adapt it on the fly depending on who you're with. But really latch onto those two joints. Look at the one you're actually trying to destroy and really control the other two. Are you actually holding on to the shoulder, or is it just the bicep? Are you actually, when you do your heel hook, are you just pulling your legs around their hip, or are you gripping on and not letting them have it back? If you're doing an ankle lock, are you just going around the ankle slowly, or are you really trapping the foot? Okay? And then break it. Free those joints, not break that limb, I mean break the system. Like, yeah, how to define that one. Like, free the joints, see if it changes that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Have a play, give me feedback afterwards. Here you go.
Was halt immer am Ende noch geht, halt.
Yeah, pinch on the round.
Wenn's halt, aber das ist ja meist halt nicht genau verhindert. So take it back.
I said, I want to make sure like, everything you do at this camp, every role you have, I just want to make better. I want you to like look at why things break and go, that was why. And so, or just get curious. Like, are you actually holding your arm bars as efficiently as you are? Maybe, maybe not. Can you make them better? Probably. But again, it's like I titled this class at the beginning, like it's a celebration of diversity in jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't want to teach you what I do. I want you to get better at what you do. And so, if you're doing techniques and you're sparring, like, play. Like, look at what you're doing and think, right, can I make this better? Is my control as good as it can be? But also, you can start to develop your own jiu-jitsu after that. Is that as long as you kind of fit in these criteria above and below the one you want, you can find submissions in lots of fun places. That's why wrist locks are so much fun. Like, honestly, it won't rot your soul. Try them. Maybe it will. It's because like the criteria to be filled above and below the one I want is pretty much everywhere. Like, all I have to do is trap their elbow somewhere and hold on to their hand, and then I get a wrist lock. Taking that concept as well, like I think ankle locks are kind of ignored a lot in jiu-jitsu. Same with wrist locks. Is you think, so if I'm doing like a heel hook or an armbar, I need the hip and the ankle, right? Or I need the wrist and the shoulder. If that messes up and I lose the shoulder or I lose the hip, I can just go down one joint set. So instead of being here and here, I can be here and here. So instead of controlling the hip and the ankle for a heel hook, I can just go knee and foot. I can just fall down one joint. So you can then like chain more submissions together, depending on if I can look at it like dynamically and critically. Am I actually controlling those joints, yes and no? Or can I just go down one set and control the next set of joints? Does that make sense? So if you find that your arm bars don't work, think, right, do I have their shoulder? Or can I get their shoulder is the more critical part. Like, is it possible? Have they already escaped it? Yes or no? And then go, right, I'm not going to get the shoulder back, but I have their elbow. I'm going to wrist lock them. I don't want it just to be a case of me talking. I want feedback of you guys. Like, I've already had one question about, pinning people down if you are lighter. Is it possible? No. That's why you have weight categories in jiu-jitsu. But you can use the criteria to your advantage to then create your own game. Don't just rote copy. Like, if you're people come to me and say, I can't standing pass. Well, you might not be the athletically built to do standing fast style passing. That's okay, but passing follows the same criteria of, I want to get past your knees and control your armpits. I don't care how you do it, slow, fast, medium paced, like, as long as you follow those criteria. And it's the same with control. As in, I might not be able to apply all my weight on top of someone. That's fine. Like, you may be bigger than me, but I can use those criteria to then control you. As in, if I follow the idea that if I control rotation points, I dictate a direction you're going to go, fine, I'll float there and I'll meet you there before you even get there. Like, if you're bigger than me, I'm not going to pin you, so I'll just dictate the directions you're going to go and I'll meet you on the way. But I'm still following the criteria. Does that make sense? Any questions on anything I've done, like any particular scenarios that you want feedback on? Yes?
The armor of the bomber's team is short legs. I feel like the hitchhiker is because isolating the other side of my shoulder.
How do you mean? Show me. I want to see. Grab a partner. Oh, me.
Armor me? Okay, like jump that way. Yeah, okay.
Again,
About the wrist
yeah.
control, basically.
Yeah, I pulled your shoulder through.
Yeah.
I wasn't just like lying on your shoulder. But again, that's again one of the big problems in jiu-jitsu. Like, oh, I can escape his. Well, yeah, because I've got long ass legs. I can't get a good grip like she can. So again, we have these like massive disparities in jiu-jitsu, and we think it's universal. It's not. Like, we're all built very differently. So how one person holds it is going to be almost impossible for someone else to hold it. Like, I can't hold that well because my legs are like 3 times as long. But if you've got short, stumpy legs, maybe that works for you. Make sense? It's the same, like, again, like, going back to that mount I did earlier. This is why I love, sorry, you've now given yourself to me. One of my favorite arm bars is I go for mount, super high mount, isolate the arm, but now I'm going to fulfill the criteria. I have his shoulder completely pinned between my shoulder and my knee, or whatever's random. I'm going to control his wrist, and I'm going to put pressure through the middle. That still applies, but now he starts to move around and frees his shoulder. Cool, elbow, and wrist. But I fulfilled the criteria. Like, maybe never seen the armbar before, but the criteria fits, armbar exists. Make sense? So, any other questions? Just do softly on. That either made no sense in the class, or that was a perfect class and no one's got questions. I doubt it was the latter. It was the perfect class. I thought. Pardon? I thought. It was okay. Okay, as long as it was okay.
For me,
Yeah, like, so definitely, like, I want to play with this idea. I don't want it to be a case of you did the class and you go away and you do other classes, which you will anyway.
I have a question.
Oh, good.
I'm struggling to control the armpits and the hips at the same time in certain positions. Would you say that it's impossible to have or is it your priority to control all points all the time?
Depends, because I can't do everything at once sometimes, but I have an awareness of what's going to be a problem to me. So, say if I choose a direction that I know I can get swept, for example, I'm aware of it. I can't, like, say when I do a sweep theory class in Iceland, unless I'm perfectly in the middle, if I'm one way, I know I'm going to get swept that way because it's easier side for me to get swept. But I have an awareness of it. It's the same as like, if I free your hips, it's not going to be a surprise if you start trying to use your legs because I've clocked it and I did it on purpose and not by accident. And that's kind of the part that I want to like give to you guys. Like, anything that goes wrong, I want it to be a conscious decision that you gave them back. Like if you find like people are shrimping in on you and you don't know why, that's a problem. Jiu-jitsu is suffering. But if you are letting them turn towards you, then it's a clocked awareness of it. Like it might have been your plan. You might want them to turn towards you so you can leg lock them for some strange reason. Like there, like, you know, if you can't control the hips, I'm aware that I didn't control the hips. Not, well, I was surprised that he shrimped on me. Does that make sense? So having these criteria, like, I don't want to be a case like you have head and arm and you always get shrimped on, you don't know why. I'd rather be a case of you have these criteria in your head, you follow them. If you don't tick one of the boxes, cool. I'm aware that I didn't tick that box. So I know that's going to be a problem if he goes for it. Maybe I can fix it later. Maybe I'll put something else there later. But for now, I know it's there. I'm going to watch, see what happens with it. If it comes towards me, bad. If it doesn't, cool. You didn't figure out the same as I did. Okay? Or it might be a plan. You could, like, same as like, it's better to know how to cover your chin and expose it, and so they throw a punch that you know is coming, but don't know how to cover your chin in the first place. Does that make sense? So leave the gaps you want to leave for specific reasons, or at least be aware of them. Any other questions?
Whenever you're actually in side control and you're using your hip to pressure into the rib, are you trying to push straight down with your hip, or are you pushing up at an angle trying to push the floating rib up?
Bit of both. Like again, it's only through feedback and hearing people screaming that I find the right place to go. It's usually like the softer part of the side of the ribs here. Like down doesn't really make much sense. I'm trying to drive through them. But try it. Hear screaming. Feedback is great. You'll learn more. It's time. Thank you for coming out early and listening to me talk for 50 minutes and drilling for 10. I'm doing 2 more classes tomorrow on, I think I'm doing Dennis's class on attacking the upper body and the lower body, so it'll be a bit similar to this. And then I'm doing a class on training better for jiu-jitsu, guard passing, etc. But thank you for coming out. Thank you for listening to me. If you've got any questions, you can find me.